Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are from Group 3. Today, we would like to present my material about building meaning through coded choice in second language learner interaction, AD discourse analysis, and proposals for curriculum design and teaching. Before we start our presentation today, we would like to introduce about ourselves. My name is Afifah as moderator, and my partner names are Aulia, Cantika, Trisan, Devita, Yosia, Trisan, Siti, Indah, Fanny, and Cantika. Okay, the next slide, please. We are going to the first material that will be explained by Aulia. For Aulia is time is yours.
Okay, next slide, please. So, the goals and the structure of the chapter. The purpose of the analysis presented in this chapter is to explore some of the discursive function of first language use in second language interaction, as well as to expand the collection of conceptual and pedagogical tools available to the language teacher, curriculum developer, and also language student to make principal use of the first language in second language learning context. So the principal use in here is understood to mean that the speaker gains awareness of the function of first language use as an integral part of second language interaction and learning. And also, this approach distinguishes between little d for discourse or language in use and big D for discourses or the enactment of specific identities and activities. Next slide, please. An ecological perspective, big D or discourse analysis and first language use. So an ecological perspective thus requires us to view language as situated activity in context. The way to analyze any use of language is to consider the layer meanings from the situated talk in interaction to the socio-historical aspect of content. Examining this layer of meaning help us understand what people do in interaction and how learning can or does happen. So in this framework, there is no such thing as either an aberrant use of the first language by second language learner, nor a meaningless one. Just as language is but one semiotic tool available for making meaning in an ecological and socio-cultural theory framework. Also, is the first language but one linguistic semiotic tool. The next material will be presented by my friend.
Okay, next is about the goals. The goals of this research is to first to look at numerous facets of meaning building through the first language at the intersection of multiple discourse. And then second is to analyze or to use analysis itself as a jumping off point for curriculum design and providing importance for learning through the principal use of the learner first language in second language learning. The interaction analyzed here was recorded as part of an action research project conducted in the Department of the Spring. And then a student attended this research will be analyzed and recorded during these extracurricular meetings. About the method of this research, the students will meet in a room next door, and then they will be instructed to read and discuss about a one-page short story by Wolfgang Borchardt entitled Das Brot. The entire conversation will be total just over 30 minutes, including the time they needed to read the story aloud. in line, they will deal with it using their first language. And then the results show that they decided to use German as much as possible and to use English only if they didn't know and could not remember the meaning of a German word or phrase. They had two dictionaries with them, a German language dictionary and German English dictionary. One of the participants, Elena, served throughout the keeper of the dictionaries looking up words for the task. The task involved 4 questions, one of which contained vocabulary with which the students were likely unfamiliar. The 30-minute conversation will be transcribed, and there will be 71 discrete use of English in the conversation, excluding the actual reading of English word from dictionary. I think that's all. Next material will be explained by my partner.
Okay, now it's about G building tasks. According to G method, when we speak or write, we always and simultaneously construct or build 7 things or 7 areas of reality. There are first significance. Significance is used when we use language to make things significant. We give things, people, ideas meaning or value, and how and what different things mean in the present situation. And then the secondly, practice. Uh, Practice is about the language can be used to signal a certain activity or practice. And then the third is identities. It's used of language to indicate a role we have taken on or switching to enact a new identity. And the next is relationship. Relationship is used of language signal the type of relationship we have or want to have with those with whom we are communicating. And then about politics. Politics, it's about how we use our language affect the distribution of social goods. For example, aiding to or taking away from reputation, authority, status, power, and etc. And also, we convey our perspective on motivates responsibility, right and wrong, and etc. And then the next, it's about connection. Connection is used to note the relevance or irrelevance between two things, even to disconnect those which are inherently relevant or vice versa, and to connect action, meanings, or words to convey your message. And then the last is sign system and knowledge. Different language, for example, Spanish or Mandarin, and then different jargon, for example, language of lawyer, artist, or sportcaster, and non-verbal communication, for example, chart, facial expression, and image, are sign system. We use language to privilege one set of knowledge, for example, the doctor versus patient, and over another, and we thereby accord greater authority to one person than another. We also use sign system to mark ourselves as a member of a group or not. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, now I'll explain about building identities. Building identities actually is used of language to indicate a role we have taken on, or switching to enact a new identity. And then discourse analyzes question, for example, what identity or identities is this piece of language being used to enact? Or what identity or identities is this piece of language attributing to others? And how does this help the speaker or writer enact his or own identity? And then the question to identify building tasks in the situation about what identities means about roles or position that seem to be relevant to or taken for granted in or under construction in the situation. Okay, the next presentation will be explained by my partner.
Okay, next is building relationship. According to G, people use language to signal what sort of relationship people have, want to have, or are trying to have with their listeners, readers, or other people, groups, or institutions about whom people are communicating. For the example, different intonation and language. The exact example is uh, teachers want to get their student attention in the class. So teachers need to talk to their student with teacherly tone. It also happen with us when we talk with our friends. We use a language that we usually talk with our friends. Next presentation will be explained by my partner.
Okay, and then next slide, please. Okay, and then building connections or intertextualities. The way the first language is used to create intertextualities and what role intertextualities relate to the first language. So, what sorts of connections are made within and across a turn to reviews or future interaction to other people, ideas, text, things, institutions, and discourse outside the current situations? Of course, it's the entire discussion of the story could be considered intertextual. And then consider two other intertextual examples involving English uttered by Elena will be continued by my friend in building science systems and knowledge.
Okay, related to the first language use, the question is how first language use itself is made relevant and how this case relevance of English enacted in the conversation. Let's look at this example. In line 188, we see that the attempt to answer the question held up by the need to establish the meaning of the word outside, which means expresses. Immediately, Elena asks Sibyl about the meaning of a further word, Kleinheit, which means smallness. Sibyl switches to English to explain the meaning of the word in line 190. In line 191, Elena announces she cannot find outside in the dictionary. Thus, Sibyl rereads the question and switches to English as she guesses at the meaning of the question. At the point, we see English taking on a relevance that goes beyond the lexical insertions and self-translations characteristic of most of the code switching in this conversation. The switch in lines 192 until 193 appears to convey that English holds a privileged position when first station enters the scene, which it clearly has with Elena's failure to find the meaning of the word outside in the dictionary. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, the hypothesis at this point is that English has now moved into a more significant position until the problem with this discussion can be worked out. Let us move on to determine whether this continues to hold. Up this point, the students have made a strong effort to remain in the German for the discussion, but they become increasingly frustrated, culminating later on. In line 240 in this expert tree above, in Sibyl's statement, because if we don't even understand the question, what is the point in answering a question? Then in excerpt 8, next slide please. Here, however, we see English retaining its privileged function expressed in line 227. Yeah, we're gonna go with bigness of soul. To understand what is meant by privileging English here, we need only consider ways Elena might have otherwise expressed herself here. Clearly, the entire conversation shows that both women are able to switch at will between German and English. Elena could have said simply white accepted bigness of soul, or similar, but using we're gonna go with underscores that this is a task to be performed, a set of decisions to make to satisfy its demands. In this case, the very meaning of the question for this English itself is given relevance and significance as a discursive tool. Okay, next part will be continued by my partner.
Wielding meaning through code choice and awareness. Code switching is when you switch or mix two languages in one situation and at the same time. Van Leer 1996 see awareness as one of the key factors involved in second language learning. The term awareness and consciousness are different. Consciousness is implying attention and intentional control, while awareness is knowledge of the very short of discourse we have looking at in the conversation below. In the interaction between A and B, it is quite clear that neither speaker was aware in the sense of consciously intending to. They used their first language. They both knew or were aware of what code switching. They also were aware of the fact that they are English language students, and of course that they are both speaker of Indonesian. In this regard, code switching in the learner conversation indeed just happen in many of the same ways. It happens in bilingual conversation in non-language classroom, bilingual or multilingual situation. To illustrate the role of awareness of all these factors, facilitating the ways the first language was used in the conversation, the second language learner would know that the first language used would not be available as a tool, or consider how the conversation might have gone if if it is forbidden the use of the first language. The next material will be explained by my partner.
Okay, so these materials brings us to the question of the curriculum design and teaching, of ways we can make use of this insight about first language used to provide affordance for learning. If we seek to raise learners' awareness to the roles of the first language in second language, communication and learning, what are the parameters of this awareness? First, awareness of code switching as normal verbal behavior for bilinguals or dastigmatis code switching. The second one, awareness of some purposes of code switching in conversation. And the last one, awareness and dactysmization of and identification with bilingual speakers in the target culture. Seen in this way, awareness as the foundation of a principled approach to code choice isn't then about consciously controlling the code switching during talk-in interaction, but this may happen rather it is about raising learner awareness of some of discourses may enact. Also, the teacher experiences and the now numerous studies of first language used in second language learning shows that regardless of whether the teacher uses the second language most or all of the time, and whether or not the teacher forbids the use of the first language. And students, in fact, use their first language in ways when they communicate in the classroom. And the simply allowing the first language in classroom communication is neither sufficient nor pedagogically sound, anymore like simply allowing any other approach or method in an unprincipled manner. Next slide, please. So here, proposals and guidelines for curriculum design and classroom affordance. The first one, we have teach students the terminology and concept to discuss bilingualism and code switching. It is not important whether this is because we believe that ideas of these fields are too difficult for students to understand, or whether one thinks teachers should maintain some ethos in the profession. The root of current practice, the teacher proposed that teachers allow time in the curriculum for explicit attention to some of the concepts that the teacher think about language learning, relationship between language, culture, history, politics, and so on. Next part will be explained by my partner.
Okay, thank you. I would like to continue Trisan's explanation. The next is develop instructional units dealing with bilingual or multilingual individuals or communities in the second language culture. Students can learn about and discuss text, video, audio, or other materials about bilingual individuals, such as authors or entertainers or communities, either from the perspective of the ways they use language or from other perspectives like social or historical. And then the next, perform discourse analysis of bilingual or multilingual speech with students. This classroom analysis can be based on transcripts and or recordings of actual bilingual conversation, which are available from a number of sources including the applied linguistics literature recorded by students themselves or taken from commercial or internet audio or video recordings. Students can perform lay analysis of this text in order to gain insights into how the languages of the speakers in the text are used in real-life situations. And the next about develop explicit collaborative classroom norms for first language use. As outlined in Levin 2005, teachers and students can use class time to analyze and discuss the roles the first language can or should play in their own classroom, specific to the place, time, and goals and the particular learning environment. And the last, develop classroom surveys or use recordings to assist and evaluate the role of the first language and coded choice practices overall. Okay, therefore the teacher and student can take a measure in the form of surveys or audio or video recordings of how language is being used in the classroom. Okay, we think that's all about our explanation. Now we would like to open question session. Therefore, if you have any question, you can unmute your microphone. Any questions so far?
Zahra, please.
Okay, Azara, please give your question.
Okay, so my question is, how does code switching affect in your classroom, especially when learning second language? I repeat, so how does code switching affect in your classroom, especially when learning second language? That's my questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Zahra, next question, please.
Please, Okta.
Okay,
Okta.
Okta, please give the question. Yes, Okta
Who?
first.
Okta.
Yes, Okta.
Okay, my name is Octavia Dulestari. I want to ask, what kind of method would you use to prove this research? Is it clear? I repeat, what kind of method would you use to prove this research?
Okay, thank you, Okta.
Thank you.
Okay, the next question.
Atika, please.
Okay, the last. Okay, Atika.
Okay, thank you for the chance. I would like to ask, could you explain what is the purpose of code switching in conversation?
Okay, thank you very much, Atika. Now for the presenters who want to answer of this question.
Okay. I will answer Azahra's question. So your question is, how does code switching affect in your classroom, especially when learning second language? In linguistics, code switching or language alternation occurs when a speaker alternates between two or more languages or language varieties in the context of a single conversation. We can use code switching. Also, it's already been researched. The findings shows that the teachers code switching practice help clear that the students' doubts, reinforce their learning, and encourage student participation in English lessons. One participant shared the same perspective of code switching as the teacher did. And then also the study found that teachers perceive code switching as enhancing academic achievement because it enhances learners' learning of the English language, also improve the way learners answer questions, and that it enhances teaching and learning of English as a second language. Azahra, did I answer your question?
Okay, thank you. Your answer.
Okay, thank you for Devita and Azahra. The next question will be answered by Danti or who maybe?
Okay, I would like to answer Octa's question. So what kind of method would you use to prove this research? Here they use a qualitative method where the conversation of the students will be analyzed in typical sort of task both students routinely carried out during the academic term in their German classes. And then in this case, the task base is discussion question about short literary text. Okta, did I answer your question? Okta,
Yes.
did I answer your question?
Yes, Danti, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for Okta and Danti. The last question from Atika who want to answer. Please unmute your mic.
Okay, I would like to answer Atika's question. What is the purposes of code switching in conversation? So sometimes there are no similar words in English, so they use their own language and make it easier to speak in their own language. Or maybe they didn't know some English words and to avoid misunderstanding. That's my answer. Atika, did I answer your question?
Yes, you did, Trisan. Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you for Atika and Trisan. That's all about our presentation today, and thank you for your great attention and participation, and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.